Third Phase Moon, Blake Cousins going over incredible footage submitted from around the world via Skype, Facebook. We're going to it right now. Brent's here too. Let's get to John Miller's video. He says he saw something strange in Missouri. Take a look at this. Okay, right away. Brent, your thoughts?
Like, this is cool. Very cool. Classic footage. Lights over the skies around the world, and this is just another submission of new evidence. What we're looking at, these things are lighting up the clouds around it. First opinion is in a debunking stage, could these be drones? But then he describes them as something totally different and don't have the capability of being drones.
Hold on a sec. Did you see that? They're intermingling. Drones don't do that. They don't absorb each other. They'd be crashing out of the sky. They'd be colliding. Drones are clunky if you don't fly them right. This is some kind of intelligence of orbs of light intermingling over Missouri.
Blake, I just saw that. It intercepted it and held it in one piece. That's very strange and very cool. Miller, thanks for supplying this new footage right here at Third Phase Moon, and we just got a massive load of uploads on Facebook that we're going to be sharing right now
on Third Phase Moon. But let's get to the next one. Scotty Miller, another Miller, saw this in his apartment in Houston, Texas, and he submitted this to the local news. He hasn't heard back from him. As he claims, this thing could be a 5-mile wide flying saucer hidden amongst the clouds.
Blake, I think his estimation is right. This thing does look about 5 miles in its diameter. It's quite interesting. What's very curious about it is the shape, the disc, the classic disc shape. There's a phenomenon. Cloaked
Look
UFOs.
At the brightness contrast.
Man, that's really bringing it out nice there, Blake. Cloaked UFOs around the world hiding themselves in clouds, and we have another submission submitted within an hour of this photo. Lenticular clouds.
We got Mrs. Huddleston that submits this photograph. We're going to take a close look, and this was taken in Oregon, Mount Hood. Again, lenticular cloud written all over it, but people say, and we've heard it, and I'm not doubting it, wouldn't this be a perfect place for a massive mothership flying saucer to hide in a cloud formation as a lenticular cloud?
Blake, this is just good stuff. I love the submissions coming in real time, and we all have opinions. I just like looking at natural phenomenon sometimes too, and we can't quite tell if it's Mother Nature or some sort of interdimensional craft hiding in these massive lenticular clouds, creating that shape.
I'm really fascinated by the highlight of the shadows underneath these cloud formations. Very strange indeed. Thanks for sharing. Now let's get to the next one. Wow, this is quite fun. Henry submits this from the Netherlands. He's heard about Planet Nibiru, Planet X, and now he's sharing this photograph with us of what he claims could be Planet X. My thoughts right away. Planet X has been found. They call it Planet 9, but it's out there in our galaxy, 10 times larger than Earth. Now, if this could be Planet X, I'm asking the public, but first off, I'm going to ask Brent. Go ahead.
Blake, Planet X is everybody's known around the world for thousands of years that there's been a Planet X. Now, what we're looking at here is what we'd be calling a binary star system. We've seen this in movies, Star Wars, Tatooine. This is what it looks like. Blake, we're not living in a binary star system. So, in my opinion, I think this is actually a lens flare.
Well, it could be. And if it's Planet X and if it's coming that close, I'd be quite worried. But I'm kind of siding with Brent on that one.
Yeah, I think we'd have to double up the SPF sunscreen on that one and pull it up to 120 because that'd be too bright.
Yeah, if that was a second sun and if it's that close, we'd be burning up right now. But maybe we're wrong. Please correct us if you could prove that Planet X of what we're seeing in this photograph is Planet X. Anyway, let's go on to the next submission. quite exciting here. Let's go to Chris Russell. He captured this in Hartlepool, England, and let's roll with the video now. Alright, so we're seeing some kind of beam of light. It's kind of strange. And what to make of it? He was puzzled. Brent, let's go to the photograph that he submitted.
Like, I'm a little puzzled too what I'm looking at here. We have this beam of light, and what I like about it is he's actually got a great clear photo of it, and it looks different from what it would be from a typical beam of light coming from a parking lot or a party or something.
Do you see those green orbs up on top? 2 of them.
That's what caught my eye too, like those orbs basically adjacent to this unnatural beam. I don't know what to make of this.
Wow, thanks, Brent. This is quite incredible, the reaction from the world, people submitting their videos, their evidence. If you've captured anything amazing, submit it to Third Phase of Moon. We're sharing it. One last thing. I wanted to shout out the Edgar Mitchell family. 48 hours ago, Edgar passed. 3rd mission to the moon, 6th man to walk on the moon, as he stated. I interviewed him. I asked him some big questions. We're going to roll with the entire interview that he just did with Third Phase of Moon. Quite amazing. Everybody, keep your eyes in the skies. We're not alone. Everybody, be safe. Blake Cousins.
15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence start. Launch commit. Liftoff. We have liftoff with Apollo 14.
Now for part 2, the exclusive interview with astronaut Edgar Mitchell in regards to what he has to say about Area 51 and a message for Third Phase of Moon. Now let's get to the exclusive interview with Dr. Jandy Elias and myself asking Edgar Mitchell the questions. Apparently there was a ex-CIA agent that just came out with a deathbed confession that he worked with Eisenhower to find out what was going on in Area 51. Have you ever been in Area 51? Any knowledge of Area 51 at the time while you were working with NASA?
Well, I know of it, but I don't. It's very sketchy. I do not know it in detail. And I've flown over it many times when I was still in the Navy. But it has been the site for many years of the UFO activity, and perhaps the attempt to find out our own, develop our own activities into that. Now, I cannot say that I'm intimately familiar with Area 51 at all, but I've known some of the people that served there, and for example, Bob Lazar, I knew him quite well when he decided to reveal what he knew. But besides that, I'm not well informed on that.
Dr. Mitchell, we mentioned, of course, the citizen hearing, how you testified it. We've spoken to several of the witnesses, and of course the organizer, Stephen Bassett. And what Blake was just referring to, that gentleman with the CIA, was also one of the testimonies that they heard. During that 5 days, you had the 6 retired congressmen and senators who came in there, open minds but skeptics. At the end, all were convinced, and Senator Gravel has come forward now and says, this happened, there is a cover-up, and we are being engaged by an extraterrestrial race. And that's basically in a court of law. If you had such testimony of such evidence, this would win over, even if you had a criminal law case with such a higher burden of proof. What do you think the importance of having such a hearing is, and do you think that this will actually lead us to something more important, such as a UN meeting on this?
Of course, I think so. I know Steve Bassett well, and I did speak remotely through Skype at that conference, and I've talked with Bassett on many occasions. And yes, we're heading in that direction. Let me point out, our planet is not going to survive forever. Neither is our sun. We're going to have to, in due course, be out of here. And we're not on a sustainable path right now. So we have to get our act together if we're going to continue living on this planet. And that means we have to emulate the ETs and be able to go somewhere else. And developing the energy sources to do that and the technologies to do that is what it's really all about these days. And that's what I am involved in as much as I can be, is doing the research and the science to help us uncover how to do that.
Wow, absolutely fantastic. Do you think that our U.S. government is knowingly hiding secret information in regards to aliens, down craft? Do they have in their possession a flying saucer and alien beings?
Well, go back to the so-called Magic 12 organization. That's what its purpose was, to hold that information and to keep it under control. And there's many, many stories of how very knowledgeable people and very high-level people were denied access to this information along the road, including Barry Goldwater when he ran for president, and President Clinton's emissary, who was sent to Wright-Patterson and couldn't get any information about it. There is a long history here of I'll just call it a cabal because that's just the word that's used, that has control of this information, has kept everybody from knowing what they don't want them to know, and that is kind of around the world. However, many countries, including Britain and Belgium and France and Brazil and Mexico, have proceeded to open up their books completely. As far as I know, our country has not.
You know, Dr. Mitchell, you mentioned that this Majestic 12, it was created by, I believe, Truman, and for basically the cover-up is, in essence, is what, as Stanton Friedman calls it, the cosmic Watergate, the truth embargo, as Stephen Bassett calls it. Through the Freedom of Information Act, there have been CIA documents going back to the 60s that actually admit to them ridiculing witnesses, making a cover-up or a story with a sighting to either discredit the witness or to say it was swamp gas or something like that. And these documents are now surfacing publicly and proving to people that obviously they knew something of this happening. What else do you know of them, of this cover-up, and with regards to...
No more than what I've just said.
Gotcha. Well, actually, go ahead, Blake.
Well, I know Edgar Mitchell he's a real busy man, and we really appreciate you coming on Third Phase of Moon and sharing your experiences and telling your stories and your knowledge about what's going on, your mission. Absolutely incredible. Mr. Edgar Mitchell, astronaut, third mission to the moon, sixth man to set foot on the moon. Absolutely fantastic. Thanks for joining us here at Third Phase of Moon. Any last words?
You bet. Been a pleasure.
Well, Dr. Mitchell, I do want to plug in you have written to our good Third Phase of Moon friend Roger Lear. You have written a preface in his book, which will be coming shortly. And if you can give one final message to all the viewers of Third Phase of Moon, everybody out there listening, what they can do to help disclosure.
Well, I think much disclosure will take care of itself in due course. What I'm trying to get to our people, more importantly, is let's try to make this a sustainable civilization so we don't use up all of our renewable resources and burn up our planet before we need to. Let's try to keep it going for at least a few more centuries, which doesn't look like we're doing right now.
Let me ask you this. You know, it's been over 40 years since we've been to the moon. Obama says we're going to be going back. NASA's working on it. It's still taking a while. Would you ever consider, if, you know, it gets easier to go to the moon, to go back and visit it again?
Well, this is a little side story that kind of goes around with an amusing little anecdote. You remember when John Glenn went back into space after he'd had his early flight, and he'd been a senator and he'd been very prominent, and he went back into space at 77 years old. Now, I was only about 65 at that time. So John and all those guys, the early guys, were just a few years older than me. However, we sat on some boards together up at the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, and one day over lunch a few years ago, I had lunch with John at the same table. And I said, John, there's a little story about it that you haven't heard. I'll tell you, I said, when you went back into space, people started asking me, well, Edgar, don't you want to go back into space? And I said, well, of course, but I'm going to wait till I'm 100. John was only 77. Wait till I'm 100, beat John's record. That was a little humorous remark about all that many years.
Wow, we'd still look forward to seeing you explore the frontiers out there. Absolutely amazing. John?
Yes, you know, there's a law, a federal law that prohibits extraterrestrial contact, and I believe it was created by NASA, and the penalties could range as high as either a 5 to 10 year imprisonment plus a $10,000 fine. And there's also a staffer, a NASA staffer, that came out and said that her job is to airbrush photos of the moon, Mars, and other planetary bodies taken by NASA and airbrush out things like pyramids or other structures. What do you say with regards to the law? I mean, if they say there's no contact.
I'm not familiar with any of that, so I can't answer your question.
Certainly. What did you experience when you arrived on the moon? What did it feel like? Just tell us some of the detail in your way of what it's like to be on the moon.
Sure. Well, let me point out that we had practiced and practiced and practiced. There wasn't anything really unfamiliar to us that we hadn't done 100 times or more in the training areas at Cape Kennedy. So, and being well-qualified test pilots and all of us military pilots during at least either World War II, the Korean War, and then even later into the Vietnamese War, we were all pretty well-qualified pilots. So going to the moon was just, I won't say it's a routine chore, but we tried to make it that by being so well-prepared that nothing was really new, but it was new and exciting, except we were so well-prepared that we went through the task one by one, like we've been doing them all our lives. And so, yes, it was exciting. We enjoyed it. We did a good job, but we certainly were well prepared because that's what we had trained on for a year or so before the flight.
Coming back from the moon, and then with all your experience and now all your studies into the phenomenon of possible extraterrestrial existence, what would you have to say to our Third Phase of Moon viewers about, possible, finally, disclosure that we are not alone in the universe? Do you think it'll ever happen?
Of course. Sure, it will happen because we're not alone in the universe. And the folks, and they are very high-level folks, not just in our country, but everywhere. I think it's called a cabal of civilian people and perhaps governments that have tried very hard to keep this from becoming a talking point among the people, but it's becoming that anyhow, because the knowledge is out. Well-educated people are accepting the fact, the evidence, I don't want to say the fact, the evidence that said we've been visited. And I think some of the strongest evidence is that our missile silos that carried intercontinental missiles over the years between the 40s and the 60s were routinely visited by alien spacecraft, and the missiles disarmed. And most people know that. They were doing a great deal of effort to keep us from killing ourselves and each other at that level.
Gordon Cooper was a very big person who spoke about this. He even wrote a letter to the United Nations, and God bless his soul, he passed away. And I bet if he were here today, he would have also testified at the citizen hearing as yourself did.
I know he would, because Gordon and I served on Apollo 10 together. I knew him very, very well. And yes, we would agree on these points.
He saw a few objects once on Edwards Air Force Base when he was filming.
He was a duty officer out at Edwards, and a UFO landed out there. And he got pictures of it, sent it off to Washington, and never heard about it again.
Some weird shit in the sky tonight. There's the big ass moon from last night. I don't know what them things are. Some weird shit, man. I'm looking directly west. Now it looks green. That's crazy.